All right, in chapter 10, lesson 5, we're going to finish up this chapter talking about appropriate measures and using the appropriate display. And we're going to use some terms that we've used before, so mean, median, and mode, but deciding which type of set of data is best with those. So the mean is best used when the data has no extreme value. So when all the values are fairly clustered together, that's the best time to use the measure of a mean, which is adding all those numbers up and dividing by the amount of numbers that you have. The median is the best measure if the data does have extreme values. So if there's some numbers that are just kind of outside, of a cluster, then that would be a good time to use the median. So if there ends up being extreme values, or there are no big gaps in the middle of the data. So mean is best used if everything is kind of clustered together, and then the median is best if the data has those extreme values, which is kind of the opposite statement of no extreme values. And then finally, the mode is usually the kind of the easiest one. When you see a number that's repeated frequently and over again, that's the best time to use the mode. So here's an example. The price of several DVDs are $22.50, $21.95, $25, $21.95, $19.95, $21.95, and $21.50. Which measure of center best represents the data? Well, we can see that they're all fairly clustered together. There's not a lot of variation. You don't see any DVDs here for $30 or $40, and you don't see any DVDs for $5. So they are fairly clustered, but we also see that the value of $21.95 is repeated 3 times. 1, 2, 3. So in this scenario, the best one to use is the mode because it does appear 3 times. If there were not these values of 21.95 repeated so many times, it probably would be best to use the mean because everything is fairly clustered. If you would have extreme values, like I said, let's say that there's a DVD that costs $40 and a DVD that costs $5 in a set, then it would probably make more sense to use the median. So the other thing we need to talk about here is using appropriate displays. So we have multiple types of graphs here. Some of these are fairly common because you use them for a while, like a line graph or a bar graph. But then we also have some showing up here like a box plot that we've used before. A circle graph, usually called a pie graph, as another option. A histogram shows the frequency of values occurring. So they have a use for that. There are just a couple different options here. So kind of familiarize yourself with this list. I'm not going to show you every single type of graph in my examples here, but we'll kind of save that for the homework when we go over that through our Zoom. So select an appropriate display for the percent of students in each grade at a middle school. So we can see, I guess that's the only thing that was given. But in our case, we have 3 grade levels. And to show like the percentage of students that are 6th grade, 7th grade, and 8th grade, it would make sense to use a pie graph for this. Because together, all the students in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, or in other schools, maybe 7th and 8th grade, those students together represent 100%. So since everything here adds up to 100%, it makes sense to use a circle graph or a pie graph. In this table, we have a list of ticket prices, and we can see their prices from 2009 to 2012. And so we see the price goes from $5, and then a year later it raises by 50 cents, and then a year later it raises by $1, and then a year later it raises by 50 cents again. So the best type of display to use here would be a line graph. Because a line graph is going to allow you to have chart the path of the steady increase in price over the years. And it says here, what can you conclude from your display? Well, we would conclude that the 2013 price would be somewhere around $7.50 to $8. We can see it's not always going up by the exact same increments because there was a $1 gap between 2010 and 2011, but then it's 50 cents. So probably it's either going to go up either 50 cents or $1 over the course of this year. And that's our last example. So when you look at the assignment, you're just going to probably one of the biggest struggles you're going to have is knowing when to use these different types of graphs. So a box plot, which we dealt with the other day, shows the median and it splits it into 4 sections. And you can see the variations of the data. And since it doesn't show every single value, it's great to show for large sets of data. So I think that's going to do it for us here. Like I said, I think you'll get a little bit more individual question help when we go over the Zoom. But that's just kind of familiarize yourself with what we're doing in this chapter. Thanks for watching.